Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in on this Friday edition. In a message posted on Truth Social, President Trump demanded that the Supreme Court step in after federal judges have blocked his agenda across the country, saying that these people are lunatics. It appears the University of Maine has decided to obey the new Trump directives about not allowing men and women's sports after the threat of losing federal funds. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has unveiled another round of cuts to programs worth $580 million this time. He claims that they were wasteful or didn't align with the administration's agenda. And the South Carolina House of Representatives has passed legislation that, if approved by the Senate, will force the Greenville Sanitation District to stop providing services outside of its stated designated service area or face being dissolved by the legislature. Some members of Greenville County are pushing back on this action. It's Friday, and we got a lot to cover. The battle of the judiciary continues. President Trump yesterday called on the Supreme Court to reverse injunctions placed on his administration's efforts to carry out mass deportations and other moves to downsize the scope of the government. In other words, the American people elected Trump in November to do just this, to close the border and to deport people here illegally. They gave him a mandate to go through our federal government and eliminate the waste and the abuse and the fraud. Yet we have these rogue activist judges who are trying to stop him every step of the way. In a lengthy post on Truth Social yesterday, Trump took aim at the, quote, radical left judges for imposing injunctions on some of his most controversial moves, such as deporting Venezuelan gang members. Trump wrote, unlawful nationwide injunctions by radical left judges could very well lead to the destruction of our country. These people are lunatics who do not care even a little bit about the repercussions from their very dangerous and incorrect decisions and rulings. Trump said a president has to be allowed to act quickly and decisively, such as returning murderers, drug lords, rapists, and other such type criminals back to their homeland or to other locations that will allow our country to be safe. He urged the High Court and Chief Justice John Roberts to address the matter. He wrote, if Justice Roberts and the United States Supreme Court do not fix this toxic and unprecedented situation immediately, all caps, our country is in very serious trouble. The Trump administration, of course, has been very critical of these federal judges who have blocked parts of his agenda as if they know better what's better for the country. And again, I don't want to get on that. I don't want to go down that path again because we've talked about it over and over this week. But it's just, it's very frustrating. It's very disappointing that we have federal judges that are so stupid that they will allow these murderers, these criminals who have come into our country illegally to stay here, that they will protect them. What kind of country is this? What kind of judges are they? Yesterday, a federal judge said that Columbia University doesn't have to give the House Education and Workforce Committee the information it had requested about student disciplinary action until after a hearing scheduled for Tuesday. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg this week drew the ire of the Trump administration after he blocked it from using the 1798 law to deport Venezuelan nationals, including alleged members of the gang Tren de Aragua, for a period of 14 days. This is the judge who tried to order some of the flights to return midair. As we know, the Trump administration chose to ignore those because the flights were already in international air. Yesterday, Trump said that Boasberg was doing everything in his power to usurp the presidency. He said he's a local unknown judge, a grandstander looking for publicity, and it cannot be for any other reason because his rulings are so ridiculous and inept. Trump wrote, Save America. Meanwhile, we have an update for you out of Maine. You know, we've talked to you about the Maine governor who has been defiant of President Trump. This is the lady who, in the White House, at the National Governors Meeting in the White House, where she and President Trump kind of had a back and forth when she threatened to sue the president when he said that if she did not stop allowing men from participating in women's sports, he was going to cut federal funding. She is very defiant, saying she wasn't going to do it and that she'd sue. Well, evidently, with the threat of cutting federal funding, and in some cases actually cutting federal funding, we now learn that the University of Maine system has agreed to comply. So they played chicken with Trump, and they lost. The U.S. Department of Agriculture announced that University of Maine says that they will now agree to comply with Trump's executive order to keep transgender athletes out of women's sports. UMS is a network of 8 public universities in Maine. They were subject to a temporary pause in funding from the USDA last week during this battle between the state and the federal government over trans inclusions in women's and girls' sports. The funding was reinstated just days later. The USDA now claims that UMS is in full compliance with Trump's executive order. Now, I wonder if they ran this by their governor. You think the governor knew that the University of Maine had decided they would comply to keep their money? In their announcement, the USDA said after the United States Department of Agriculture initiated a Title IX compliance review regarding federal funding, the University of Maine system has clearly communicated its compliance with Title IX's requirement to protect equal opportunities for women and girls to compete in safe and fair sports as articulated in President Donald J. Trump's executive order. They said any faults claimed by the UMaine can and will result in onerous and even potentially criminal financial liability. The University of Maine Chancellor Danielle Malloy provided a statement saying the system is relieved to have come to an understanding with USDA. Look, this didn't have to be hard. It's very simple. You would have never even had to consider losing your federal funding, or not this time, had you just immediately obeyed the president's executive order. Maybe you need to have a sit down with your governor and explain to her that her threats of legal challenges to Trump didn't help their case any. The chancellor said the University of Maine system has always maintained its compliance with state and federal laws and with NCAA rules, which the U.S. Department of Agriculture also confirmed in their press release. They said, we're relieved to put the department's Title IX compliance review behind us so the land-grant University of Maine and our statewide partners can continue to leverage USDA. In fiscal year 2024, this is what got their attention. The USDA awarded $29.78 million in funding to UMS for research. The USDA claims it's provided over $100 million to the University of Maine in recent years in a letter addressed to the system. Now, I think Elon Musk and Doge needs to look and see how that $100 million was spent. The NCAA also amended its gender eligibility policy, you may recall, to prohibit any athlete born biologically male from competing in women's sports. Isn't it crazy that we have to go through this, that this was ever even a question? That men should be allowed to participate in women's sports. Think about the harm that's already been done these past few years to some of these young ladies who will never get that opportunity again. They missed out on some of their high school sports and some of their college sports, and they'll never be able to go back and make that up because some of these adults allowed these young boys to pretend to be women. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. And look, I'm just thankful that President Trump is going to stand up to him. Trump, as you may recall, initially vowed to cut all funding to Maine, specifically if it continued to allow trans athletes to compete in girls' sports. This was at the GOP governors at the White House on February 20th. This was when the next day Governor Janet Mills' office responded with a statement threatening legal action against the Trump administration if it withheld federal funding from the state. Well, guess what? That didn't scare Donald Trump. That didn't scare him at all. Just hours after that interaction, the U.S. Department of Education announced that it would investigate the state for allowing transgender athletes to compete in girls' sports and for potential Title IX violations. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has already determined that the state and its Department of Education has, in fact, violated some Title IX instances by allowing transgender athletes to compete, and warned that it will make a referral to this U.S. Department of Justice if the state does not provide a written agreement to comply with Trump's executive order. I don't think they need to be playing around with the Trump administration because they mean what they say. Hi, Joey Hudson here. You know, this spring there's a renewed energy and focus on efficiencies, and shaking up unhealthy habits don't serve us well. There's so much chatter about making America great again, but it starts in your home with you being the best, healthiest version of yourself. And PhD Weight Loss is doing their part because for the first time ever, the first 11 callers get 2 free weeks added to your weight loss program. That is huge. PhD's out to prove that you don't need Big Pharma to reach your goals. It just creates dependency, not long-term change. Dr. Ashley Lucas researched weight loss trends for years and discovered a scientifically proven way to retrain your body to burn fat efficiently without hunger, extreme exercise, or dangerous medications. PhD clients watch their belly fat disappear, their energy skyrocket, cholesterol and blood pressure normalize without starving themselves. I lost over 30 pounds and I've never felt better. So call now and mention promo code Joey for my 2 weeks for free with my program. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or go to myphdweightloss.com. Before we move on from young men participating in women's sports, one more thing here. This Oregon high school that came under fire last year for allowing a transgender athlete to compete against girls continues to blow away competition a year later. The people in Oregon still haven't gotten the message. And this looks like it's going to be another Trump administration showdown with Oregon after they finish with Maine. Here's the story. Ada Gallagher, running as a 10th grader at McDaniel High School in Portland, Oregon, finished in first place in the 200-meter and the 400-meter races during the 6A1 Portland Interscholastic League Championship in 2024. Now, as an 11th grader, Mr. Gallagher was back on the track for a Portland Interscholastic League meet at the athlete's home track, where Gallagher was spotted blowing out the competition, especially in the 400-meter, where the athlete finished more than 7 seconds better than the rest of the field. Gallagher finished at 57.62 in the 400-meter, with Franklin High School's Kanali Subhangang coming in second at 105.72. Gallagher's teammate, Quinnan Schaefer, was behind at 107.13. Then in the 200-meter race, Gallagher finished first place again. Both times, Gallagher set season records. As the video of the races began to circulate on social media, commenters began to speak their piece, of course. One person said that experience must be so demoralizing for those girls. You'll look back later and be much more infuriated, especially if you have children of your own, another added. The girls should all just start refusing to run, and it will soon end. Now, let me tell you what should happen here. The adults need to step up. The principals, the school administrators, the school board members need to stop this nonsense. The parents of these girls need to stop this nonsense. They need to demand that this young boy not be allowed to compete with their daughters. It's just that simple. And look, Trump needs to go ahead and just withhold any federal funding to Oregon until all this nonsense stops. The Oregon School Activities Association, which is the governing body for the Portland Interscholastic League, has a gender identity participation policy that, quote, allows students to participate for the athletic or activity program of their consistently asserted gender identity while providing a fair and safe environment for all students. Well, how can you say that you provide a fair environment for these young girls when you have a young boy competing? This is just, and I get so worked up thinking about it, because I think about if it were my daughter who had worked hard to run in track and gave up a lot of other things to train, and then this boy is allowed to come in and destroy their sport. It's just maddening. President Trump's executive order 14201, known as Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports, was signed to protect female student athletes in the women's category from having to compete with or against or having to appear unclothed before males. It's real simple. When Trump signed the order last month, Oregon Republicans were delighted. The House Minority Leader Christine Drazen saying the athlete would introduce a bill to rewrite policies in high school athletics. The Drazen said in a statement released on National Girls and Women's in Sports Day, said women have fought for and have earned respect and support for themselves in sports and have made incredible gains in doing so. We must defend that progress and stand up for fairness. Well, let me tell you something, Rep. You need to stand up now. You need to stop this nonsense. Those records that this young man supposedly set, that should be wiped out. Let the young ladies who came in second to this male, give them the trophy. Let their times, if their times broke a record, let their times stand. Again, it's just maddening to think about this. Moving on, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth unveiled another round of cuts to programs yesterday worth $580 million. This is just another example of DOGE working hard to create opportunities to cut this waste. With those cuts, Hegseth estimated that the Department of Government Efficiency has found roughly $800 million in savings so far at the Pentagon. Here's the Secretary of Defense.
We're back with another quick update on our efforts to cut wasteful spending and cut it quickly at the Department of Defense so we get the dollars to the things that the warfighters need. So today, I'm signing a memo directing the termination of over $580 million in DoD contracts and grants that do not match the priorities of this president or this department. In other words, they are not a good use of taxpayer dollars. Ultimately, that's who funds us, and we owe you transparency and making sure we're using it well. So here's quickly what we're canceling today. There's an HR software effort that was supposed to take a year and cost $36 million, but instead it's taken 8 years and is currently $280 million over budget, not delivering what it was supposed to. So that's 780% over budget. We're not doing that anymore. Number two, another batch of DoD grants, $360 million worth this time. Decarbonizing emissions from Navy ships, part of the Obama-Biden green agenda, that's $6 million. $5.2 million on something that would diversify and engage the Navy by engaging underrepresented BIPOC students and scholars. Another $9 million at a university to approach equitable AI and machine learning models. I need lethal machine learning models, not equitable machine learning models. And number three, in our ongoing effort to cut wasteful spending on external consulting services, $30 million in contracts with Gartner and McKinsey. It's IT, purchasing, unused licenses. So when you add it all up, $580 million in DoD contracts and grants, DOGE is helping us cut today. What does that bring our total number up? Total cuts, running total, $800 million in wasteful spending canceled over the first few weeks as DoD partners with DOGE here to make sure that our warfighters have what they need by cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse. They're working hard. We're working hard with them. We appreciate the work that they're doing, and we have a lot more coming, so stay tuned. So might as well not waste any more time right now. Just sign this thing. How about that? So this makes it official. We're going to keep going for you guys.
And what you heard there at the end was the Secretary signing it, holding it up, and showing you the order where he saved the $580 million. This is what it's all about, folks. Identifying and eliminating this waste. On the text line, Ginger writes, I am all for dozing the Department of Education, but are we sure that federal funding for things like special ed, etc., will be given to the states? My teacher friends are concerned about losing important federal funding. Well, and that's what the Democrats want your teacher friends to be afraid of. And this is their tactic. Oh, they're going to cut all the federal funding. The special ed classes are going to be deleted. These poor kids aren't going to have their special ed classes. That's not what's going to happen at all. If there's abuse, waste in special ed programs, some of that may be cut. But eliminating the Department of Education is not going to affect the amount of money that's going to make its way back to helping our local schools. It's just going to provide more of it. Because think about it. You eliminate the huge bloated budget of the federal bureaucracy known as the Department of Education. You cut that out, we're going to save money plus be able to send the grant money down to the local school boards and to the State Department of Education. So don't fall for this scare tactic. And, we're going to lose federal funding. Our kids aren't going to have class. It's not the way it's going to happen. I mean, can you think of a single instance where the Department of Education has helped your local school, your child's school? If you can think of it, email me, text me. I'd love to know about it. Faye writes, well, Joey, tyranny now wears a robe, and the Dems don't worry because they know Republicans don't have the backbone to treat them in that manner. These rogue judges have to be made an example and put them in their places once and for all. The president is responsible for protecting U.S. citizens. Tell the judges to take a long walk on a short pier. Thank you, Faye. We've talked a lot about these rogue federal judges this week. It's dominated the headlines. And the sad part is it's probably going to continue to until the U.S. Supreme Court steps in. So who are these judges? And what have they done so far? Well, the recent wave of these injunctions from federal judges are designed to disrupt what President Trump and his administration is trying to do in these early days of his second White House term. Federal judges across the country have tried to block various programs. They tried to block Trump's ban on transgender persons serving in the U.S. military. They've ordered the reinstatement of core functions of the U.S. Agency for International Development, the U.S. aid. And we know what waste that was. And these judges are trying to prevent that from being eliminated. They halted Elon Musk's government efficiency organization, DOGE. They're trying to shut it down from oversight and access to government agencies in order for them to do their job. They've also temporarily halted deportations, or attempted to. A couple of those plane loads were already too far gone. Combined with this wave of rulings has been met with outrage, of course, from the Trump administration and from you and me, from the American people who elected Donald Trump to do the things that he's doing. Of course, the Trump administration is appealing these to the Supreme Court. Some may not need to be appealing. There may be other avenues to accomplish it. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has done a magnificent job of using her podium to rail against what she calls the radical left-wing judges, and that's what they are. She has alleged that these judges acting with a political agenda to block Trump's executive orders is just that. It's not that they're trying to be fair judges. They are weaponizing their position. Leavitt said on X, expanding on remarks that she made in a Wednesday press conference, she said, these judicial activists want to unilaterally stop President Trump from deporting foreign terrorists, hiring and firing executive branch employees, and determining the readiness of our troops. They must be reined in, she said, and that is a fair statement. They must be. Some of the president's supporters in Congress have threatened the judges who block the president's agenda with impeachment. There's been impeachment articles filed in some cases. So who are these people? U.S. District Court Judge Theodore Shang. He's an Obama appointee. He ruled Tuesday that DOGE's efforts to dismantle U.S. aid on an accelerated basis likely violated the U.S. Constitution in multiple ways and ordered the partial restoration of the agency's functions, including reinstatement of personnel access to email and payment systems. I hope they ignore his ruling. Shang's preliminary injunction is believed to be the first to directly invoke Musk himself. It said Musk could interact with USAID employees only after being granted express authorization from an agency official. So in other words, what they're saying is that these agencies have to allow Elon Musk in to do what he's doing. And we know that's not going to happen because they're not going to invite Elon Musk in to just dismantle their agency. It's blocked those from engaging in any further work at USAID. Hours later, U.S. District Judge Anna Reyes, this time, issued a preliminary injunction barring the Pentagon from enforcing Trump's order on transgender persons serving in the military. Reyes, the first openly gay member of the court, hence her ruling, wrote in a scathing 79-page ruling that the Trump administration failed to demonstrate that transgender service members would hinder military readiness, relying on what she described as pure conjecture to attempt to justify the policy. Lady, I get back to common sense. Common sense tells you it's not right. But again, how do you think they came upon this openly gay member of the court to file their suit with? You think that was coincidence? No. That is called judge shopping, and that's what they did. They knew that she would be that she would be lenient and that she would be sympathetic because she's gay. Both rulings will be challenged. I mean, the Trump administration will appeal them. Probably going to end up with the Supreme Court. We have to just pray that those conservative judges, 4 of which Donald Trump put there, do what the American people have asked Donald Trump to do. There's other. Of course, we talked about a number of times this week, U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg, who tried to turn the airplanes around. Boasberg has warned the Trump administration that it could face consequences for violating his court order. Boasberg handed down the temporary restraining order Saturday evening, around the time that the Trump administration had proceeded to deport hundreds of illegals to Venezuela. El Salvador's president said in a post on X, "Oopsie, too late," after the planes had already landed in his country. Look, folks, we're at war with our own federal judges. We got to pray for the president. We got to pray for these judges, and pray for our country that we're on the right track. We just have to have the stomach and the backbone to see it through, and I think we will. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. 2 bills in the South Carolina legislature could potentially change the Greater Greenville Sanitation Division. It could potentially restrict services. It could potentially dissolve the sanitation district. It's created quite the conversation. Joining us today, one of the sponsors, Representative Mike Burns. Welcome. It's been too long since we talked.
It has been a while. It's good to talk with you also, and I appreciate you reaching out to give some clarity to the situation that's going on.
Yep. Well, let's just start, Representative Burns, with a quick summary of what these 2 bills could potentially do to our trash pickup.
Well, number one, let's set the stage a little bit. This is a state-created special purpose district from back in the late 60s. When it was created, it has boundaries that it's supposed to operate within, and it's got a lot of caveats. And what's happened over the years, to be fair, they do a good job. We don't want to see their employees lose their jobs or any of this, but the special purpose district has to operate within its bounds. What we've ended up with is government spreading out and taking private businesses out of operation because they're overcharging somewhat, in my view, to their own constituency within their district, taking those proceeds, going out of the district to municipalities, different government-run organizations, signing governmental agreements and undercutting the price tremendously. And the people that had the contracts with these, they're at a loss. They lose that income. They lose their jobs. And in one particular instance, in one municipality in Traverse Rest, they actually had to go out of business because of losing the contract.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And, while Greenville Sanitation apparently is doing a really good job on the 4 days a week that they operate, I'll give you a good example. The commercial clients within their district, we feel like with the millage fee they're being charged because they're a business, they're worth a lot of money. They are charged not at the residential tax rate, the 4% residential rate, but at a business rate of 6% or more. And when you multiply it times what it's worth, one apartment complex I pulled up, for instance, is paying $54,000 for the millage taxes rather, and then the Greenville Sanitation, all the taxes are for the sanitation district, and then coupled with that is a sanitation fee going to the sanitation district, $54,000 when you could get any private business to come in and haul their waste away for under $25,000. So they're in a box that they can't get out of.
Yeah.
So they're being overcharged, and then they pocket this money. Then they're able to go to a municipality or another place that doesn't have to pay the millage, charge the simple sanitation fee, which is less than half of what they're charging the other folks. So they're able to expand out. It's good if you can get away with it, but it's not good when you're putting other businesses out on the back of your constituents in your working district that you're authorized to operate in.
Yeah. Representative Mike Burns with me today. Now, Representative Burns, I want to be sure I understand this. So if you're in the district, you're going to pay a millage as part of your tax, but you also have to pay a fee as well?
Yes, sir. You have to pay both.
So why would
outside the district that millage doesn't apply because it's not in your district, so there's no millage tax applied. So then you discharge the sanitation fee, and so you get your job. If you're out of the district, you get it much less, and when you get it much less, you're doing it on the backs of your own people in your own district because you have to be overcharging them to allow them to do this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, House Bill 4003 is an effort to try to get a compromise and get this genie back in the bottle.
So this would basically require the Greater Greenville Sanitation Division to operate within their district.
Operate as they were originally chartered. That's correct.
So, Representative Burns, from what I understand and what I gather in just some of the news reports, they're members of Greenville County Council. They're not too happy about this. Where do you see this heading, and why is there an objection from them?
Well, first of all, the sanitation district is a state chartered organization, special purpose district. And there's been some criticism from about half the county council who doesn't think we should be involved in this, and they claim home rule, yet they've done nothing to straighten the situation up to this point. And so their criticism is not really well founded because they're a state chartered organization, not a county chartered special purpose district.
Yeah.
And if they are that interested in it, they need to get involved and help us get them back in bounds.
Yeah.
And about half the county council is in the camp that I'm in, and that camp is to get them back where they're legal and in bounds and not profiting to expand business and put private business out of operation because they can on the backs of their own customers in their own purpose district.
Right, right. With me today, South Carolina Representative Mike Burns. And I got to tell you, my first thought is, and I don't live in the district, but if I did live in the district, I think I'm going to want to look at, well, what would this cost me if I hired a private service to pick up my trash versus what I'm having to pay tax-wise and the fee. I mean, has anyone done a comparison like that? I mean, would it be better off if the sanitation district just went away, people don't pay the millage and just pay for their own service?
Well, one could make that case pretty easily, but what I would say to answer that, certainly the commercial accounts would be better off within the sanitation district. They were really formed to only do residential stuff.
Yeah.
It's evolved into commercial accounts, and they wouldn't have $10 million of cash sitting in the bank right now and be able to expand and go out and hurt these private businesses if they were charging only residential fees. And so the commercial people are getting killed, like the example I gave you.
Yeah.
You know, they could pay $25,000, but they have to pay the $54,000. And so they can't go out and get private business to come doing it because they can't afford to.
Yeah, yeah. Representative Mike Burns, we're talking trash, basically. So the bill, your bills have passed the House. Now they're sent over to the Senate. Do you expect them to pass the Senate?
Well, I do expect them to pass, but, you know, there's some deliberation going on. We're trying to get an agreement among all parties, including, of course, the sanitation district. We thought we had that done over in the House, and we only put one bill forward. And what happened was they came in, we thought in good faith, and we went over the parameters. They seemed to agree with everything. We sent over the compromise bill to the Senate, and then guess what? They started lobbying up. They decided they didn't want to do what they'd previously agreed to do. And so they backed out of the deal, and then we sent over the bill that if we can't get an agreement would put them out of business.
Yeah.
And I really don't want that to happen. That's a very, very, very last resort. But, you know, we seem to be getting on pretty good ground. Not everybody's on board yet, but we're getting close.
Yeah. So
it's a little fluid right now, and probably this time next week, hopefully this will be over and we'll have an agreement. We can go on to the next important calamity that needs to be solved.
Yeah. So it wasn't your original intention to put them out of business, so to speak. You just want them to do what they were chartered to do.
Absolutely. You nailed it.
Yeah.
The only reason if we can't get the genie back in the bottle and make them do what they need to be doing, then that's the option that's available. We really don't want to do it, but it can be done. And, you know, there's a lot of people that feel like, you know, if that's not the case, it'll have to be a last resort. And we don't want that once again. But, you know, it's kind of up to them, to be honest.
Yeah. Representative Mike Burns, it's always a pleasure. Appreciate your time and kind of explaining this because, you know, it has been on the minds of a lot of people, particularly who live in that district and are wanting to know, well, you know, what's the future of the pickup and the service in my for my home. And so we'll stay in touch and maybe get an update when you guys work out a deal.
All right, very good. You have a good weekend. Thanks for being interested in the subject.
Sure.
It's important to get this solved. Thanks a lot.
Always a pleasure. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.